let's get started here. Thanks for joining us today for navigating the manufacturing perfect storm in a post-COVID world, looking at increased lead time, increased costs, and decreased quality in surface finishing applications and frankly manufacturing overall that was experienced after COVID kind of recovered. So today I want to introduce you to our three speakers. I'm Mike Bangasser, president of Best Technology, been with Best Technology for about 15 years. My background's in medical device manufacturing and in process development, specifically at Boston Scientific doing validations and process validation. So the specialty that we really have here at Best Technology is designing our equipment that enables it for easy and consistent validation throughout manufacturing. So I'll let Tyler and Mark introduce themselves, and we'll keep moving forward here. Tyler.
And I'm Tyler Ferry. I have had experience both in the manufacturing world on the manufacturer's side and also manufacturer's rep side as well, and specifically bring an expertise in customizing applications around each and every customer's needs. Mark?
I'm Mark Battles. I have over 20 years of experience in the medical and aerospace industry, running, developing, and designing of processes, specialty processes like titanium anodizing or electropolishing in them industries, and currently been at Best Tech for almost 7 years.
Excellent. So as you can see here, we have a great crew to really represent as subject matter experts in surface finishing equipment and surface finishing processes. So let's dive in a little bit. I'll introduce you to the Best Technology itself. We've been in existence since 1992 throughout various phase outs and chemistries and equipment in manufacturing since 1992, specifically in cleaning and metal finishing and surface finishing applications. So most of the equipment that we offer and chemicals are custom designed around customer processes. And as I was mentioning in the prior introduction, ease of validation is really important for many of our customers in medical device, aerospace, and other regulated industries that have to validate their machines that they purchase from us. Having that ease of validation and repeatability in process is very, very important when looking to insource applications. So when is it time to bring a process in-house? It's really critical to identify that. A lot of our customers identified that pre-COVID in various ways. That's changed a little bit since COVID, and we'll dive into that. What does it take to bring a process in-house? So what steps are involved bringing either one process of surface finishing or maybe multi in at the same time? Oftentimes we do see customers, when they identify time to insource, they'll bring multiple processes in at once for ease of bringing an entire process up, as well as on the validation front, they all can be done at the same time. So obviously a little bit more work at that, but if you brought them in separately, it would probably be in separate steps would be quite a bit more work. So we do see our customers purchasing multiple pieces of equipment and process development all at the same time. We'll look at what does success look like. You obviously want to bring it in-house. You're bringing it in-house for a number of reasons, but how do you measure success is really important for all the stakeholders, not just repeatability in engineering, but the cost-saving measures for finance on the management end and business development. What did it allow you to bring in and accelerate growth in the company and such? So at the end here, then we'll touch on what insourcing opportunities look like. So we'll dive into some chemicals and equipment that we've helped our customers with, and we'll kind of just give you some background on the process that went through bringing in cleaning, bringing in passivation, electropolishing, chem film, anodizing, as well as titanium anodizing. So as we dive into that, keep in mind that the equipment we offer, we're really trying to tailor this presentation around how to insource in those aspects. So with that, we'll dive into when is it time to insource. Tyler, you want to grab this?
Mm-hmm. And, around the theme of what we're talking about, navigating that storm in a post-COVID world, as we all saw during that time, supply chain became, such a large issue and trouble for many companies. And for many of us, we're still seeing a sort of hangover from that time. And it's not really something, not a storm we've really gotten out of in a lot of ways. And so, as I'm sure you've seen both within your company itself and outside of, those that you're relying on for vendors for processing certain parts, you're seeing the quality decrease, you're seeing the lead times being extended, you're seeing costs go up per part. And part of that, with the quality going down, really kind of the unspoken, a certain intangible, and even the tangibles are affected as well. If you're having to rework parts, if you're having to scrap parts, every time you're sending parts back and forth, and also just the really the unspoken, are we really going to get our parts when they said they're going to send it, and how does that affect your relationship with your own delivery times and what you're able to do? So a lot of these challenges arising, we're hearing from a lot of our clients from the supply chain end with vendors that they're sending out parts to. And on the other end, not just with the challenges, but the opportunities, what are you losing out on when you're not bringing these processes in-house? And these are what a lot of our customers are wondering is, when is it time to make that jump to bring that process in-house so we can start capturing more and more opportunities and taking more of a proactive approach rather than having that reactive approach like I had spoken about with the instability in the supply chain. Because as we're seeing with a lot of our customers, bringing in these processes gives them more control, gives them more confidence, and it gives them that competitive advantage over their competitors when they're bringing those processes in-house. And the key takeaway really from this is that best technology, we are helping to navigate through that question, when is the right time, and all the reasons for why it might be the right time. Because for you as a company, it's something you might be thinking about, but you're not ready. And that's okay. That's really what we want to offer, is helping to navigate and find what that critical timeline is that you need to hit, that once you're hitting it, you're then avoiding those challenges with the supply chain, relying on those vendors, and also creating a competitive advantage over your competitors.
Thank you, Tyler. What does the steps look like when you're looking to insource, this type of equipment? Well, there's a lot of key factors in bringing in a process, especially if it's something that you've never done before. Passivation is a pretty common one we get asked about. People have never done it. They have no experience. They're working with different chemicals. Some of them could be hazardous. So it's really working with the right subject matter expert is a key ingredient. And when you're looking at insourcing as the beginning steps of bringing something like this in, and a lot of you with the industries that you may be working in, the medical or aerospace industries, there has to be somewhat of an internal approval as well as an external approval. To pursue something that your customer's not going to allow you or approve you to bring in is something that has to be addressed in the very beginning stages, to make sure that you do have some customer buy-in before you spend the energy and the efforts into looking at, putting a team together, or even looking at, environmental issues or health issues or safety issues, which will a lot of times, depending on the chemistry, require external approval. So, really aligning yourself and, explanations of defining what you want to bring in and exactly how it's going to be timing and deliverables of what you want as far as the process you're looking to bring it in is really key in the beginning stages of adding that. And one of the big keys that we see when we work with different customers is having a real cross-functional team in your organization that really specializes in the area they work in, manufacturing, engineering, purchasing, facilities, EHS for safety, management, having all the key players on a project when you're developing a team is really key. So they can pull all the expertise in your organization and really make sure that you're covering all bases that may be required. Because in some cases, with some of the chemistries that we are working with, there is outside approval. There may be permitting required from the city or the state for you to bring in because there may be venting involved, disposal involved. So it is really, really key. And then before you're actually trying to purchase a piece of equipment, you really got to look at, we're currently sending this out. What is that costing? What pain point are we having with our current vendor or subcontractor that is causing us issues? Either being like what Tyler said, late deliveries. Having late deliveries in this type of world nowadays, on-time delivery is everything for your customers. And, a subcontractor or a vendor can delay that. They can really make it hard for you to meet your deliverables to your customer, which can affect the relationship with your customer. And of course, the overall cost, transportation costs back and forth. So you really want to look at the ROI and justify the piece of equipment to be able to bring into your facility. And then, of course, the final stage would be, getting management together with your team and getting an approval for capital expenditure for such type of equipment, so that you could possibly look at the next step of bringing the process in-house or buying equipment and start going down the road of bringing it in. And some of the key takeaways on this is really getting all the stakeholders aligned and planning it out very methodically, to make sure that you're covering all your bases and you're not seeing anything or any hiccups during this process. We do see with the demand and the constant lead times and increased costs from some of the vendors out there, and we hear it every day, all day long. Some of our customers have a very tight timeline. So, really defining it is key, and working with the right subject matter expert.
Let's dive into the implementation end. Really important. Once you get that exploration done, you've got management buy-in. Now it's the implementation execution. So it's time to invest the capital that has been approved. Got to put that ROI into action. So looking at your timelines of when does the capital equipment need to be ordered to meet the dates of when you're going to have your facility upgrades finished. Your location, maybe you're having to add on to the building and such. So it's not uncommon in a post-COVID world to see capital equipment from 12 to over 25, 30 weeks, depending on the type of equipment and how customized it is. So planning that ahead is really important, because not only do you have the capital equipment lead time and the facility upgrade lead time, but you also have to plan in your installation timeframes, the qualifications and validations that need to get done, and achieving final customer approval before you're ready to pull your outsourced product in. You need to have all that planned out. And laying out checklists on each of these steps is really what we're experts with. We'll walk right alongside you to make sure that the capital is ordered at the right time. If there's any questions on installation with utilities, typically on a surface finishing applications like we're talking about, they typically do require just about every utility connection in most aspects, depending on chemicals. So for certainly electrical, most definitely plumbing, you're going to have water source drops, you're going to have drain source. You could have a waste treatment system. Depending on the chemistries, if they're aggressive or not, they may require exhausting to outside the facility, and so on and so forth. So having those lined up for when the equipment comes in will help keep you on time and on stage for proper implementation. And then really comes the engineering step in. So from maintenance, and facilities on the installation to the engineering end is having the install qualification, the IQ, set up and ready to go when that equipment comes in, the operational qualification, and then the process qualification overall, so that you can go into your customer and justify saying, hey, we on our outsource, this is the output that we have that we receive in quality and stability. And here's what we found out from our process qualification and validation, that we're able to hit or exceed what we were sending outsourced, not only from increased capacity on a scrap end, but also on a quality basis, that we're able to hit all of those metrics. So once final customer is approved, then you can start diminishing the outsource reliance and ramping up production on the insource end. So, in summary to this, we really look to it as a partnership in providing the attention to detail that we've been doing for 30 years to help you from start to finish, from the exploration end, the implementation, and support beyond that point. We really do try to serve as a one-stop shop. We've been doing this long enough that we know what it takes. We've seen just about every hiccup you could possibly hear, and we have mitigation plans for those issues to help our customers achieve success quickly and on schedule. So what does successful insourcing look like if we're talking about finishing the implementation? So is the time frame met as scheduled, as I mentioned before? Do we have the process quality control in-house and ready to go? Can we measure the parts based on the machining requirements? But if there's surface finishing requirements that are needed as well, are those able to be accomplished and properly tracked? Hopefully now you've brought these processes in-house. There's no issues with delays in shipping out or in, damaged parts out or in. Your on-time delivery should be much more accurate, both in promised and what's really actually happening to your customer. We often see decreases in lead time to your customers, which also results in better operational efficiencies and costs. If you're able to turn raw material into finished product shipped to your customer in a quicker time, there's less money investment from the company in different stages of the manufacturing process, and saves you money, and of course will increase profits at that point. So of course, decreasing the cost overall in your actual raw product, but decreasing scrap is super important. Scrap adds up really quick, and if your scrap rates are high from outsourcing them, bringing them in-house, you should understand much faster if you're having any process instability, what's causing that scrap, what's causing the rework, implementing those process changes immediately and seeing those results. Oftentimes, just that in itself, decreasing the scrap and the process improvement, can be dramatically reduced by 3 to 4 to 5 times versus asking your supplier to do those changes and validate the changes that they've done. Doing it in-house, you know exactly what it takes to make those changes and make sure that they're within the process parameters of the original validation, or if any other requalification needs to be done, it can be done much faster. So what that really gives you then, you've got increased engineering capacity. Your engineers don't have to sit and try to do quality audits on vendors and making sure that scrap is analyzed and understood. If you have decreased scrap, your engineers can certainly work on other things and take more time for the growth of the business and opportunity, rather than the reactive time used for trying to figure out root cause for quality issues or chasing parts around that were damaged during transit and so on and so forth. So with 40 years of experience that we have, we really do look as the ROI is the real realization. Is it there or isn't it? From the beginning of the project all the way through looking, was it a successful insourcing? And we've got hundreds and hundreds of projects that we've helped our customers insource. Over the years, what's really neat is we've had advancements in equipment and in chemicals that allow our customers to bring what may have been a hazardous or dangerous type of application in the past that was a perfect fit for outsourcing at a metal finishing plating shop, to bringing it in-house in an office even type environment or a clean room environment that was unheard of 10, 15, 20 years ago. Those are all able to be brought in-house now, and we help our customers understand the increases of or the advancements in chemicals and these equipment in automation and process control, which justifies the ROI even further. So really important to keep up on technology, keep up on the equipment advancements, and we're certainly attuned to that as we're pioneering those improvements in the industry of surface finishing equipment and chemicals.
Some examples of surface and finishing insourcing that we do. We kind of took the top four that we see that people are asking for. Tyler is going to be talking about cleaning and passivation. I will be touching on chem film surface finishing. And then Tyler will be touching on electropolishing surface finishing. And then I will finish up with titanium anodizing.
So for a lot of our customers, and what we're seeing the most often for people insourcing processes, cleaning and passivation is by far the most common. And in some ways, you know, the easiest thing to begin insourcing. And that might be cleaning standalone, you know, or passivation, or it could be paired. And one thing to keep in mind, you know, when passivating is that you need proper cleaning prior to that. So having really that mindset, as we've been talking about, of looking at everything from start to finish within the process, what's all involved. So when someone is coming and saying, I want to insource passivation, we're asking the question, you know, do you have cleaning capabilities? Are you currently cleaning in your facility? Because if not, that's something that we're going to end up, you know, pairing together, and we want to look at it as really a fully integrated system from start to finish. And as you can see, one of the systems we have here is a fully automated passivation system. And this is just one of the many options that we can offer with cleaning or passivation. We can do something really as small as like a benchtop cleaning or, you know, citric passivation system that's in polypropylene tanks. If it's something that you're wanting to start, get familiar with, and going all the way up to something like this with the fully automated system. And one thing that Mike had mentioned earlier was looking at processes that you may have not ever dreamed or thought of bringing in-house because of maybe the chemical factor or the safety around that. Something like with this automated system, you're looking at a fully enclosed system that is able to deal with hazardous chemicals. And the other benefit of looking at automating something like this is you're going to be able to process parts more efficiently, more safely, both for the environment and the operators. And you'll be able to have data tracking around that, so you're keeping a log very easily within the system rather than a manual log. And as we've been talking about in our post-COVID world, it's harder and harder to come by operators, as you're seeing from your vendors or subcontractors, and that may be some of the fear or the scare around bringing a process in-house. And that's something that we're always evaluating and keeping realistic expectations around. And again, why something like an automated system like what you see here is a very good option. And as Ed mentioned, cleaning and passivation is the most common process, is brought in-house, and it's something that we're very familiar with. We like to call it our bread and butter.
Thank you, Tyler. We do offer a wide variety of equipment. Probably one of the most next common pieces of equipment that we see is people are looking for, Allodyne, chem film, conversion coating type equipment. And with some of the breakthroughs in the chemistry, a lot of people don't want the type 1, which is a hexavalent type. There is a type 2 now out there in the industry, which is trivalent chrome, which is much more environmentally friendly. We have a wide variety of what we can offer in these systems. A lot of them are custom built to the application itself and the chemistry stream. So we really, take notice of what chemistries are required, what is needed, and really design the line for you. So it meets all your needs and your demands. This could mean you want automation on a system like this. We can offer up semi-automation. Semi-automation is, where the operator is still controlling the automation. We can offer fully automation, or we can make it automation ready. Just about all our equipment that we design when it comes to chem film, we try to design it with the mind that at some point our customers may want to automate it. So we always take that in consideration when designing a custom piece of equipment like this. So we're very customizable when it comes to your application and what you're looking for. We're always open to, hey, this feature would be nice. Maybe we've never done it before, but we're going to entertain the fact and look at it and say, yeah, this is something that we could possibly do. And then we'll look at it and then come up with the engineering way to actually implement it into a line. We have a lot of different types of chem film lines. We can go from very small tabletops units like you see on the right-hand side. We also offer, for a lot of customers that have water restraints, or it's very difficult to have any discharge from their building. The one on the left, we have created our own DI skid. And what a DI skid basically will do is filter out whatever you're putting in the water and return the water back to the rinse tank. So you have almost zero discharge. So we have a lot of flexibility in these systems, right down to something very, very simple. Just the bare minimum what you would need as far as a straightforward, low cost entry level piece of equipment like you may see on the next slide. So these are kind of combination of what you've seen on all of the slides. One of the big key takeaways is, configuration to meet your business needs of the equipment, space allotted for the equipment, what specifications you have to adhere to, so that we're making sure that we're designing the line correctly and accurately for what you need to meet.
Electropolishing is another application we see very commonly, and oftentimes when we have customers coming in looking at insourcing, there's really a lot of questions around what the process parameters are, how do we size the tanks, how is it designed, what's all involved. And so we're starting from the base level of, is there a certain specification you're adhering to? If you're looking at ASTM B912, I'm going to know that you are going to be requiring a post-acid dip after your electropolishing step. And it may be something for people that are looking at insourcing may not be aware of, may think there's too much to overcome, but again, we're walking with you from start to finish of understanding what's all involved at designing the line, making sure it's properly sized, because electropolishing is unique in the way that you are sizing specifically the electropolishing tank around what your size parts are, and specifically the surface area. And if this is a new process for you, it's maybe something you're not aware of or not quite sure how to get to that point. And so something that we're always keeping in mind is what are your specific application needs, and then we are designing the system around what your needs are and setting realistic expectations of what insourcing that system would look like. And as I had mentioned, where we're coming in is helping to define what the sizing of those tanks look like, your power source, designing it so it can fit your floor space. There are some cases where you might be limited on space you have available, and so we're taking that into account. So if we need to make the tanks, shorter, thinner, taller, or we want them wider, are we including, ventilation on a tank more than just the electropolishing tank, and how are we sizing that fume extraction, and all those other parameter controls and details that go into that sizing of the system and designing it.
Thank you, Tyler. Another application that we've been seeing more and more, and it's getting a lot more popular, is titanium anodizing. There is two different types of titanium anodizing equipment. There's type 2 and there's type 3. We have the ability to marry them both together. The process is fairly same on the front end as far as cleaning and prepping of the material when it comes to titanium. When you're talking about out of the two different types, most people struggle with type 3, which is the color anodize. Color anodizing is a lot different than aluminum anodizing. Aluminum anodizing, you're creating a porous surface and you're dyeing it. So you're physically changing the color. With titanium anodizing, you're manipulating an oxide layer and you're bending light and giving you the perception of color. So things, if you don't prep the surface correctly, it can definitely affect your outcome. And here at Best Technology, we understand them factors and really understand the proper way of prepping the surface so that we're getting the results that are needed when it comes to, color or type 2 titanium anodizing on lines. This particular line, as you can see, is skirted. Most titanium anodizing lines are going to medical companies. The appearance is a big thing for them. And this is something else we have the ability to do, is to make something very showroom looking if you want it to look that way on a piece of equipment. Titanium anodizing is getting a lot more popular as time goes on. A long time ago, when I was first in the industry, it was very kept really tight because people did not want to disclose what they're doing because it's a big money maker for a lot of subcontractors out there. But as time's going on, chemistry developments and all of this is giving the opportunity for people to start bringing some of this stuff in-house. And some of the key takeaways with bringing in this type of process is understanding kind of, it's similar to what Tyler was saying on the electropolishing side, sizing of the rectifier, knowing the surface area that you want to anodize at once, understanding all them parameters and knowing what the right key factors are into sizing the tanks correctly, sizing the rectifier, and also, helping sometimes in rack orientation of a part. Some of these processes are line of sight processes, and it's important that you rack them in a certain way or make sure they're, inside of a cathode in some cases.
Excellent. Well, good demonstration of the different types of equipment we've helped our customers insource over time. So just wanted to touch on, the agenda and kind of the key points, and then we'll open this up for Q&A. So we talked about when is the right time to insource. Certainly can be driven off a reactive end from a quality basis, but we also hope that people are looking at on a proactive end, on the opportunity end, to increase business within your company by bringing these processes in, can attract new customers that can look to you as a one-stop shop than a machining center that has to send out their surface finishing or send out their quality control and such. So we have a proven process that we've helped many customers navigate these challenges and opportunities. The steps to bring the processes in-house. Certainly, it's really important to get alignment and planning with subject matter experts and all the internal staff needed in various departments of the executive end, management, engineering, operations and manufacturing, facilities, environmental health and safety. May need to get some external buy-in from the customer or any regulatory bodies, as well as local municipalities may want to participate as well. So it's really important to gather this cross-functional team so that you're not stalled out in between waiting for feedback as the process goes on, especially if you're looking to fast track bringing a process in-house. It can take some time. So what does success look like? Really? The proof is in the pudding, as I always say. If the ROI isn't there, it wasn't a successful implementation. So with 40 years of experience of bringing these processes in-house, we help our customers look at that ROI initially, and then after the implementation, what does it look like as the process matures and successful insourcing is seen through all the aspects of tangible and intangible achievements. So we also touched on what types of opportunities are there for surface finishing with regards to cleaning, passivation, electropolishing, chemical film, and anodizing. as well as titanium anodizing. So we have a whole host of different other surface finishing techniques and processes and equipment. We just highlighted these here. You can see all of them on our website, from mechanical surface manipulation and polishing to all the other ones we've mentioned, vapor degreasing as well. Gosh, I could list them for a while, but understanding the complete system customization leads to really a long-term relationship with our customers. If you're buying off-the-shelf systems, which is just fine for some applications, those will work. But looking at it on a customization end for your application, rather than you trying to manipulate and change your process for a piece of equipment, is really, really essential to achieving that process stability. And understanding that from the start, the real goal, while it is ROI, the real goal is that process stability will increase the profitability of the company, will increase the attraction of customers to your company because they can see the quality products that you produce. And while some people see surface finishing maybe not as value added as a machining and purely changing a part, if you don't have a part that's clean or properly surface finished, it will show at some point, and a customer will realize that quality isn't there in that aspect. So when we say tangible and intangible, I also say visible and invisible. When you can't see something, it certainly will show itself at some point if you haven't taken care of it. So with that, let's open it up to some questions that some of the people joining us on the webinar may have. If you want to type your questions in, I can kind of read them off to you, and we can touch on those. I'll give just a second here for people to type them in, and then we'll chime in. All right, I see one here, and maybe Tyler, since you talked about passivation, can you talk a little bit about what's involved in passivation for bringing it in-house if maybe your vendor does nitric passivation or does citric, or the difference between the two and what that looks like on the insourcing end?
Sure, Mike. That's a great question. Thank you, whoever asked that question. So there is going to be the important question where we're starting. What chemistry are you using? And if there's a certain specification, usually for our customers, they have a certain specification that's calling out what they're required to do, whether it be ASTM A967 or the other common one for aerospace, specifically AMS 2700. So there is that differentiation, that distinction you want to make, whether you're using citric chemistry or nitric, or in some cases nitric with sodium dichromate. And with citric processes, while ventilation isn't required, sometimes it may be incorporated to deal with humidity in a facility if you're running it hot enough. Nitric, it is going to be required that you have fume extraction, ventilation, to be getting the fumes away from both your operators and any metals within your shop, because that can become corrosive over time and break down equipment. And so defining that from the very start is something that we're always focused on, because we want to not only have it be effective, to be safe, to be meeting the spec that you're required to hit, but also designing it so it is the most efficient.
Excellent. Thank you. Another question came in here, and let me read it through. They want to know, geez, you guys talked about the complete process, but how do I know where to start? And I guess I can grab that one, or Mark, if you want to chime in too. As I've been in this business for now going on 15 years, I really look at our business of providing as much information as possible to people to research on their own. And when they're ready to contact us, they know that they'll get an expert on the phone with regards to chemicals, or if you're looking at equipment in that end. But where do you start? Well, all the information on our website not only talks about the equipment that we offer, but the equipment just accomplishes the means to the end of a process that needs to be completed. So our website really highlights a lot of the information needed for the processing of the part, not just the equipment. So for example, there's a very popular page on our site called What is Passivation? If you want to know everything there is about passivation, read the page. It may overwhelm you. pick up the phone. We'll explain it to you. We'll break it down. There's no obligation that you need to move forward purchasing any equipment or a project in itself. We're here to help. So we know if we provide the information to you now, as you build that cross-functional team, you'll bring us into the mix at that point. So don't feel like you can't reach out to us if you have a really early stage research or application, or if you're starting to come further along, or someone just dropped this project on your lap and you don't know where to turn to. That's where we can step in too. We'll teach you all the information. You can teach your internal team, and then we can set up a call to really dive into all the aspects of the project too. So I think if you looked around the internet, you'd find that our website has more information on it than anyone else out there. And that's something we really pride ourselves on, is being subject matter experts, not only in the information we present online, but when you interact with people like Tyler or like Mark or myself, we're well versed, not just in the equipment, but the process too, because we have experience in the field doing this. Rather than just talking the talk, we've walked the walk. So any other questions out there? Mark, there's one on titanium anodizing. If you can touch on why is it used, and what makes it, how do you get all these different colors? You talked about bending light, but what's the reason for all these colors, and what applications do you see people want to do titanium color anodizing?
Oh, sure. So, mainly titanium anodizing on the color side was developed to aid the doctor. So a lot of these stuff that gets titanium color anodized are generally screws of some sort, a bone screw that they are going to color. And, the doctor doesn't really know by the x-rays what screw length he needs. He's usually given in a kit in a surgical room that has all the different colors, and there's a chart in that kit that will tell him blue is 10 millimeters. So once he opens up the patient and he's looking at the patient, he can get a better understanding because he can see with his own eyes, okay, I'm going to need a 10 millimeter or 15 millimeter screw to go put into this patient. And he takes the necessary screws that he needs out of the kit to perform the operation that he's doing on his patient. That is the main reason why titanium anodizing color is mainly used. It is also used in some cases for decoration purposes. But with the fact that it's building an oxide layer and bending the light, outside factors can change the color over time. Just by you touching it with your finger oils on your hands can bend the light, make the light reflect differently. As far as the different colors go, when you passivate a part, kind of like what Tyler touched on, you're removing all free iron from the surface. And with titanium, if you prep the surface correctly and you apply voltage to it, as you go up in voltage, you're building that oxide layer thicker and thicker and thicker and bending the light differently. So voltage will dictate the color. To give you, kind of a more detailed answer, a natural passive layer is 200 to 300 angstroms thick, which is very thin. You get bronze at about to a 350, and you get green at 500 angstroms. So, really the voltage dictates the color and the color you want. And then the amperage dictates how much current you need to force it over a part, how big the part is, how much surface area you have on that part. So that's mainly what colors used. The other type is type 2. That is a wear coat to give to the titanium a little more lubricity. Type 2 is commonly used for trauma plates, where you have a bone fracture and a plate and some screws need to be put into a plate. When you take titanium and you naturally rub titanium together, you create a black powder. And when you have threads threading into a plate and maybe has to be threaded and then unthreaded, you can have that screw seize. And when you're laying on a surgical table, you really don't want the doctor to have problems unscrewing a screw if he's trying to take it out of a plate that he may have put in you earlier on an operation after you're healed. So type 2 is mainly used for lubricity as a wear coat to prevent that seizing happening on the titanium.
Thanks, Mark. Had a question come in too of what is the most effective water recirculation system for rinse tanks? We are looking to have minimal waste. I think you kind of touched on that. I can I could scroll back on the slide that you touched on, but maybe you can
Yeah, that
dive
was
in.
one of the chem film lines. If you look at the back behind this line, them are DI skids. What a DI skid is, what we do is our rinse tanks are made to flow. If your rinses are not flowing, eventually they become chemistry tanks. So way our DI skid, there is a holding tank on our DI skid. There is a high level float and a low level float and an operating float. We usually put self-filling on the reservoir tank because the pump that's on the DI skid is fairly expensive, so we want to protect it. But from there, when the overflow weir gravity drains into this holding tank, we're going to push the water through a carbon filter, through a flow regulator, and we're also going to put an ohm light on the skid so we know what quality of water is coming out. And then we're going to push it through a DI bed and then return it back to the tank. And that is really the most efficient way to really recover water if you're trying to just filter out what you're putting into it. And it is pretty close to zero discharge, which has become pretty popular here of late.
Excellent. I think one thing to touch on that Mark mentioned is measuring the quality coming into the water and going out of the DI skid. So we can turn on that DI skid when the quality of water meets a certain point, the resistivity meets a certain point. Sometimes there's no reason to continue the recirculation of DI water when the water is of quality, but when it isn't, we can immediately turn on the pump to recirculate and bring that quality back in spec. So it's not only just measuring the discharge from that system, it's measuring what are the parts seeing right here, right now. And that goes back to Tyler's part about data logging is we can then log, this is what the resistivity was of that rinse water during this stage of the process with respect to a certain lot of parts that you're data tracking to in your quality management system. So it's important to have all of that data available to you, but it's what are you going to do with it is what's most important. And driving minimal waste from measuring and only using this beds when it's needed also then minimizes the amount of waste from the DI beds themselves when they need to be recharged. So give you maximum longevity to those beds too. So any other questions? We're starting to run to the end of our time that we have here. We want to be respectful of people's time. But any other questions here? Mark or Tyler, any common questions that you guys hear since you're on the phone all day, every day, working with various customers? Any applications that you see common questions asked? Not to put you on the spot, but thought you guys hear these enough. You might have something off the top of your head too, as we see. Wait for people to chime in.
Well, I know one thing I can definitely say with, what we hear a lot is, the quality has fallen off, lead time is doubled, cost is doubled. And, mainly what we hear a lot is people are contacting us and I just want an idea what this would cost if I decided to look at bringing it in the house. And I would encourage you to contact us. We're not shy. We're going to look at you to ask a few questions and very quickly be able to throw you kind of a rough budgetary number as what this project may overall be looking for you. And I think that's what a lot of people in our competitor have struggled to do. They want to get right down and try to sell you something. We want to help you. We're not, if you buy, great. It's a win for everybody, for you, for us. But if you don't, and if we can just educate you, that's good enough for us sometimes.
Mhm. And a question, we're often hearing is how soon can we get equipment? And oftentimes, there are people who have reached really a threshold and have kind of been asking that question in the background of, okay, when is it time to do something about this? When is it time? When is it time? And the sooner that people are contacting us, the better. I think there's sometimes hesitation that we're hearing from people, hey, I may be calling you too early. And we say, no, this is actually good because what we want to do, like we've talked about today, is we want to be there really from start to finish and understand if you're moving into a new facility, if you're expanding your facility, if you're looking to add a completely, new cell to your facility, we want to know that from the start and the earlier that we're involved, the more we can help customize and configure that specific application and system for your process as you're bringing it in.
Yeah, I think to touch on that too, Tyler, is if you get someone coming to us late in the stage, maybe they've already formed these internal teams and they've done a lot of this internally. Now they're in a panic going, hey, we need to start production in 3 months on this. Can you meet that schedule? And depending on what the requirements are, we certainly will try. We can turn some equipment in a matter of a couple weeks if it's really simple, but keep in mind that these are all customized systems. We want them to meet your requirements rather than you having to meet the equipment requirements. So those definitions take time working with the customer on, and the lead time on that could be increased then. So make sure you reach out earlier than later, but we'll do everything we can if you're late in the game to bring something in or you've identified a serious quality issue with your customer or with your current vendor. We can either help get you some demo equipment to maybe keep you going while we're building your equipment, or recommend another outsourced company until you're ready to bring it in. As Mark said, if you don't buy anything from us, that's okay. We have all the information there. Our hope is we build some trust in you that when the time is right, you come back to us. It's a matter of time until companies grow, and we want to be there for when you grow. So with that, why don't we wrap up here? We really appreciate your time today. Kind of driving through what does it take to insource a product or a process? What steps are involved? What does success look like? What types of offerings can be insourced in surface finishing? So hopefully we're able to answer some questions for you. As those questions come up here in the future, feel free to drop us a line. There's a live chat on our website, or you can send an email to sales@besttechnologyinc.com. Or of course, on the website, there's a form too that you can fill out. So we really appreciate your time today. And for the customers that have been long time, I can see here on our webinar that have been long-time customers, we appreciate all your business in the long run. And those that are looking at bringing some processes in-house and learning more, we certainly appreciate you checking us out and look forward to talking with you here further. Everyone have a great one, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.